So that means that uh, technically I liked it too. Because if we was at a program, we was one program in 88, yeah, Mustaqbal al-Haramain at the King George Hotel in St. Louis. One of the Lebanese sheikhs was translating for a while, and then when Muhammad al-Asi was translating what the brothers were saying in Arabic, it was a whole other difference. So I'm sure that's why they mentioned Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui mentioned him, but he didn't mention him in the same way. You know, Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui knew that I was really movement orientated, not personally, that I was just like he was concerned about the whole movement, not just the Oakland part. Oh, they could tell when you're speaking. And so that was my job. Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui would always come get me, and he would put me just before if he wasn't going to speak, he would put me last all around the world, because I would hook it up, and when we leave, everybody's unified. That was a gift. Everybody knew it, and Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui knew it. You could tell the way he was talking that was a gift. Muhammad al-Asi knew it too, because the first time he heard me really speak was in Canada in '84. And so he said, "You got a gift." He said, "Keep it." And I said, "Fine." A gift, speaking to people and, bringing out good. Anyway, so here we are now. This Islamic Sabiqun Liberation Movement, Sabiqun Liberation Organization. If you wanted to choose a day when we, or a time, or a month when we have our refocus on what our next stage is, of course we've been knowing it all along, but now the focus is here, the focus is clear. So that's what we plan to do. So I look at it as going back to Oakland as invasion preparation. You know, where they had the invasion of Normandy, they had the invasion of North Africa, then they had in World War II, first they invaded North Africa, Tunisia and all of that. And they helped the British with Al Alamein in Egypt. So they didn't go straight to Europe. The Germans was in Africa. So in fact, Rommel, the first big fights they had with him was in North Africa. Okay. So after they cleaned up North Africa, then they planned the invasion of Europe. But they didn't go where they wanted to. The other people wanted them to go straight to France, invade that. They didn't do that. They invaded Italy first. The boot sticks way out down there. So they invaded Italy. Then they came on up through there. And then, as they was coming up through there, then they planned the invasion of Europe. But they came to France first, and liberated France. Then they liberated all of the other areas. And then finally they crossed the Rhine into Germany. So in an invasion, we're technically calling this I shall return, or we shall return. This is just historically stuff like that. Okay, even in that, they didn't want an invasion of the Philippines. The big generals and wasn't the big generals. his stuff was with the Navy, and they wanted to, at a certain time, they wanted to, in 44, of course they got ran out, and then they went to Australia, then they built up, and then they came back. When they came back, they wanted to go, some of them, the Navy wanted them to go to Formosa, which is now, Formosa is Taiwan, because that's technically China. And then from there, it's a big island, they would build up all this stuff there. Then they would invade Japan directly. And MacArthur told them, he was talking about himself, he said, I said, that I'm going to return to the Philippines and liberate the Philippines first. And he told them, he said, the people of color have been told that America will never liberate a people of color first. That's what MacArthur told him, not that he was a racist, but he's telling them, hey, the world is watching, and they're saying, you'll never liberate all of those people first, and then have all those zillions of people behind you to, to come and undo what you have done. So he won the day, so they invaded Lady Gulf, technically the biggest sea battle in history, And one of the biggest shocks when my daughter was in the hospital, one of the ladies was from the Philippines. She's a Filipino, they study nursing over there, then they come over here, and tons of Filipinos. Everybody come to America snatch off a piece, so the nurses get a big piece, and then the islanders do a lot of nursing too. From Jamaica and all that part. They're a lot into, So everybody that comes here lops off a piece. So the nurses, I was talking to the nurse up there. In fact, everybody I was talking to, they thought that I was almost from their country, because I could talk. Nobody has ever taught. I said, no, it's MacArthur. She said, I'm from the city in the Philippines where MacArthur, oh, you from Lady, or you from Lingaya. Lingaya, she was like, who the hell knows about Lingaya? I said, yeah, the Gulf of Lingaya and da-da-da-da-da. And everybody that would come around, one day it was a nurse, this was at GW though, she was handling something. And I said, you got that Valley Girl sound. They talk a certain way in parts of California. She looked real, then finally, she said, yeah, I'm from Thousand Oaks. I said, well, no, I told her, you got that Valley Girl Berkeley sound, She said, well, I am from the Valley. I'm from Thousand Oaks. As soon as you come over the hills into the Valley, the first place you hit is Thousand Oaks. Anyway, so in history, we've studied a lot about history, and we place ourselves in history because what we're doing is historical. And no matter what anybody say, we understand what our historical position is in America and in the world, not only by what we do, but what everybody else do. It's got to be important, or when I walk out of the house at midnight and somebody step out from around the corner, they they got somebody I've been out there or up the hill or over there watching even it during the night. In case I get up and go somewhere, they don't have to call and go get him. They right in on it. They do that. Or if I'm in a certain place, you know, I was running up the hill one day on a real hot day. I should get back to the lecture. And, you know, when you put your hand on your legs just to get a breath and everything, this was a super hot day. I had plastic on, and I just run up the hill, walk back down. I was almost up the hill, so I just stopped, and I did like this, just normal. Shoot. Two polices, lady police, and a sergeant or something. Oh, can we help you? Are you all right? Oh, no. When I had a fight, you know, they used to insult some of the black people over at Halalco a long time ago. So I had big juice at Halalco because we traded books and we did that. We were very good. And this guy got out of line, so I whooped him up a little bit. And the police came. When the police came, of course, they threw it out of court because they didn't show up for. But anyway, shoot, a sergeant, plainclothesman, drove right back up and was standing right next to. He said, "Oh, I'm just making sure everything go all right." When I got arrested down there for messing for those police down there 20 years ago, easy. Right. When the police was whooping on the guy, this is a police from over here, plainclothesman. He came and just parked, took his big badge out so they know he's not a nigger, he's a police, and put his badge right, not on his thing, like he just put it right there where they could see it, just watching to make sure of what goes on. I could talk to the police. I ain't got no license. You know, I remember back in first got married, we was going to Indiana. Not Indiana, we was going to Illinois. You go to, and the police stopped me. You're speeding. I'd like to see your license. So I said, I ain't got no license. Well, I said, well, take me to your little old jail. So he was happy with that. He ran back, got on the horn, and he came and said, well, do you have license? And then y'all could drive off. She didn't have didn't say nothing, and he just drove off. Shoot, I done had police stop me on a motorcycle, and he'd get on the horn, and when he called my name in Oakland, he threw the license back in my car and zipped off like he got a hot call. He ain't got no hot call. He just called in, they said, leave that nigga alone. We got him. You don't have to worry. And I've told police, I was in Texas, because you black on the highway, black while driving, or whatever they call it. They pulled me over. I mean, this is in everything, all the time. I never go to jail. And I don't never have no license. And I don't just start talking crazy. I wait till they definitely got everything lined up and they know who they're messing with. Then I start talking crazy. Because I don't want no Peckerwood. I mean, no Texas cracker, just, you know. And I done did it serious. I'm telling you, in Memphis, boy, look here, coming through Memphis, they stopped me for a tail light. So how you gonna stop a car doing 70 miles an hour and about a tail light? brake light. And then by that time, the sergeant pulled up, and do you have lights? Did anybody in there? He asked everybody in the car. He was in the car, both of the kids is in the car, and they all know what's going on too. So I just came and I gave Sister Bahia, I was trying to give her $800. I said, if they take me to jail, you just go right up there to that airport, to that hotel, get you a room, call a cab, and go to the airport and get everybody home. That's all. Boy, you want to, you can catch the bus. But the point is, I know about surveillance, and I know how important we are to them. Way more important to them